incidents like this one at Heathrow Airport. I'm joined now by passenger rights advocate Gabor Lukács. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good afternoon. It's great to be with you.
Now, we heard earlier the comparison to this travel chaos being similar to what we experienced after September 11th. I wonder how you would characterize it.
I think that's an exaggeration. This is a situation which is clearly an extraordinary circumstance. However, we're not talking about anything of the magnitude that September 11th has caused, where the entire North American airspace was pretty much shut down. This is nowhere near that. There are still flights throughout Europe, and if you want to get from Canada to a location other than the UK, or even in the UK, but other than London, you have ways to do it via Frankfurt, via Amsterdam, via Paris, via Munich, via Vienna possibly, and many other major European cities that are directly connected to Canada. So
right.
In this situation, it depends where you are. If you are trying to get back to Canada from Europe, the airline has an obligation to provide you with meals and accommodation under the European Union and the UK's passenger protection standards. Unfortunately, this also underscores how poor Canada's passenger protection regime is, because if you're trying to travel from Canada to Europe, then the only obligation the airline would have is to rebook you. Although if they cannot rebook you on a flight of their own or a partner airline that departs within 48 hours, then they have to buy you a ticket on a competitor airline. But no meals or accommodation if you are trying to travel from Canada to Europe.
You know, I'm thinking what people do when they're in the middle of a situation like this. You're at the airport, you see there's this major incident that's happening. You're looking at the board, you're seeing those delays, those cancellations. What should be your kind of immediate step to figure out what you're going to do at that moment?
Your immediate step is, of course, first to ascertain what is happening, why it is happening, and then getting in touch with the airline to say, okay, how can you rebook me? Because even under Canada's inferior passenger protection regime, and we do have a terrible regime here that is nowhere similar to the European Union's gold standard, you still have the right to be rebooked on a competitor airline if the airline doesn't rebook you or unable to rebook you on a flight that departs within 48 hours on its own or partner airlines. If you are in Europe, you will also be looking at getting meals and accommodation as per the European Union's gold standard. But ultimately, if you are getting no cooperation from the airline, first of all, get some meals, keep the receipts, get a hotel, keep the receipts, communicate with your family, keep the receipts for your communications. All these are expenses that later on you can claim from the airline if they fail to provide you something that you were owed. Ultimately, if they just ignore your request for being rebooked, you may want to rebook yourself a flight to a different airline, different city, if London Heathrow is not your final destination, and then send the bill and make the original airline pay for your expenses, because remember, you always have the right to be rebooked. That's an absolute requirement, and if they don't do so in a timely manner, then the airline is in breach of your rights, breach of the contract.
And I wonder about making these different arrangements too. Like you're saying in this case with Heathrow Airport that there are different options to get to Europe. What's the best way to kind of figure out the best route to take in that instance?
I would use a variety of online softwares, online search engines. I would not necessarily buy the ticket from third-party travel agents, but I would rather use the online tools like Expedia, like Google Flights, just to figure out what is the best possible flight, and then possibly go to the actual airline's website and buy from them directly, just to avoid any potential problems with ticketing, booking, and so on.
As someone who follows incidents like this so closely, Gabor, I wonder how long you think it's going to take for Heathrow to get back on track again.
That's very hard to predict. I don't have a crystal ball. I hope it is going to happen very soon, and I'm sure that people are working very hard to get people home in the UK, to get air traffic back as quickly as possible. This is an act of God. It's an accident, and I'm sure all hands are on deck to make it happen as quickly as possible.
I appreciate so much your insights into all of this. Passenger rights advocate Gabor Lukács, thanks so much for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you very much for having me.
Nice to see you again.